I thought we'd take a look today at the giant Hasbro and Galoob figures of the 1990s. They've had all sorts of big figures over the years, some really great Jakks ones. There was a great Jakks Kane figure. I've got rid of most of those now, and these are the ones I keep as part of my collection. I have to say, I really love the Galoob ones in a way that I probably didn't when I was younger. The Hasbros were my collector's items. They were the things that I collected, and the Galoobs were always a bit second rate. They were always a bit solid and a bit lumpy, and the big figures were cool, but I had to focus on what I could afford, and it was always the Hasbros. And in fact, none of these were figures that I had in my collection as a boy. I got all these much later in life. I really like the Ric Flair. I like the fact that he's got his knee pads slid down. It doesn't have his initials on his trunks, but he has got a nice RF on the boots. They all come with a belt. I've got all these second hand at a reasonable price actually. They're quite pricey on eBay, but if you wait around, you can find them at a reasonable price. They all come with a belt, as I say. I haven't got all the belts. That's another reason why I got them cheaper on eBay. I've got one belt, which is all you need really. I like this one because I think it always looks like a giant version of the smaller Galoob figure, and obviously they've got articulation that the little Galoobs didn't have, but they are really solid, just absolutely solid. Great scorpion on the side of Sting, and there he is with his pink face paint. Great figure, that one. I was really pleased to add these into the collection. The Lex Luger figure, I have to be honest, that stage of Lex Luger's career in the early 90s, just a bit bland to me. It was as a kid and it is now, and I just think that's reflected in his action figures. Interestingly, look, they've got his knee pads a bit lower down. They've obviously just copied the moulding from the Ric Flair figure, and there he is. Funny thing about these figures, I always think, is they're squashable heads, but they're pretty hefty. And then Sid. I do like this Sid figure. I'm not sure it looks a lot like him. There he is. Hello. Again, squashable head. He's got his singlet on. They've got unique knee pads and the classic socks that Sid always used to wear. And there is the WCW Championship belt. It's a bigger version of the smaller belts, although with much more detail than the small Galoob figures had. They were, as I said, things that really attracted me when I was a kid, but just couldn't buy. You know, back then you always have to prioritise what you spend your pocket money on, and for me it was always spending money on the Hasbro set, which is why I've got such a great collection of Hasbros. But later in life, when I've had the opportunity to get hold of these, I wanted to add them into the collection. Whether I'll keep them forever, I don't know. I've sold a large part of my collection. They're so big I'm trying to put them somewhere. And let's move on to these, because these are absolutely hysterical now. They were always pretty cool, much more lightweight than the Galoob figures. This paint job on the Warrior I've always loved. I'd always wanted a small Hasbro version like this. Now, the pull cord does work, but as I think with most of these days, slightly modified. Feel the power of the Warrior. What? He accepts the ultimate challenge. It's like a translation, this. It's a bit intense, isn't it? It's got the old rubbing on the nose that all the little figures have. It's in pretty good condition, that though. Pleased with that one. They are slightly smaller, the Hasbros and the Galoobs as well. And can I get them to stand up? I'll get Rick to stand up there. And Hulk steps up, looking pretty wild-eyed and cartoon-like. They're very lightweight. They're a bit like, remind me of the old bubble bath holders you used to get. And there he is. You can see the hole in the back where he's got his speaker. And let's see what Hulk's got to say for himself, shall we? Something about, oh, say your prayers and eat your vitamins. Of course it was. Pythons, yeah, got that bit. Yeah, I did. It's got more than two phrases, surely. Watch the rules, brother. It's not what he said, was it? What? There is a way, apparently, that you can take them apart and you can adjust the mechanism inside to fix them, but I don't think I'm going to risk doing that in case I ruin them. I think my favourite of them definitely is the Warrior because of that paint job. It's just a really nice looking figure, that. And definitely my favourite of the Galoobs is the Sting figure. Although Sid comes a close second, I think they really epitomise, or they tell a story about Galoobs. When you were a kid, you know, the whole thing about WCW in the early 90s was that it just seemed a bit dull and a bit of a second-rate knockoff of the WWF. And that was absolutely the case with the figures. They just aren't as exciting. That figure, it's just so bland and so basic. It's great to have it as part of the collection, and I look back with nostalgia now, but as a kid, the size and weight of it was great, but it's just a bit boring, I think. Whereas, you know, the reason why Sting was popular, even for those of us who like the WWF, was because of the face paint and the look. It's got his little ponytail as well, which is a nice addition. And I do really, really like this Sid figure. If they'd been able to make those small Galoobs articulated, maybe they'd have been a little bit more successful. But there we are. Those are the giant figures that I've still got as part of my collection, and they are full of nostalgia for me. I suppose I should show you how the legs work. The reason I didn't is because they don't really. They can do a good super kick like that. Oh, hello. Because the legs bend backwards nicely, but they don't go forward very far because of their hip joints. You can't really get them much further forward than that, but you can bend them this way. You can do sort of maybe a Boston crab, or yeah, definitely do a super kick. It looks a bit painful though, doesn't it? It's not his best day. Yeah. That way, can he sit? He can't sit. You can sort of twist them out, I suppose. It's going to pop out. You watch this. Come on, Lex. Just have a sit down. Oh, there you go. Look, you just twist them out like that. So you can do a sort of flying cannonball if you want, or I suppose you could do a power bomb. Ah! And that's how the legs work.